In 1981, I was sitting in the back of a courtroom watching what was happening to a 2.5-year-old child. This child had been horribly abused in his first 6 months of life and lived in foster care for 2 years and thrived. But the judge was concerned about the close attachment that this little boy had with his foster family and ordered that he be removed from that home and placed with strangers. No one said anything. No one objected. I was shocked by both the decision and the fact that the attorney for that child did not say anything. And I walked out of that courtroom committed to starting my own organization to speak up for kids.
I saw the center as being an organization that was dedicated to providing services for children, both on individual cases, but more importantly on significant systemic issues.
In 1981, kids could languish in the system for up to a year without even having a trial to determine if they were in fact abused or neglected. So one of the first things that we did in the early 80s was we created legislation which I refer to as a speedy trial right for kids. Our work has had an impact on everything we do for kids in this state, that every child-centered reform has our thumbprint on it.
I saw it as an innovative way of representing children. They set the standard. The center set the standard.
My name is Jolene Murray, and I'm 16.
I'm Kiana, and I'm 16 years old.
Kiana is very funny. She's very shy at first.
Jolene, well, she's more like loud and obnoxious sometimes, and she's more like outgoing than I am.
We were foster parents. We were an emergency placement home, and we had many kids. And we got a girl in our home who was supposed to be there 3 days, named Kiana. You know, Kiana's social worker dropped her off and didn't come back for a year. He didn't call. Kiana was born crack addicted, and she had some medical problems early on in her life, and they just weren't there. Kiana didn't have any family. Her parental rights had been terminated. Her biological grandmother said in open court that she wanted to adopt her brother, but not her. We made a decision as a family that we wanted to adopt her. Unfortunately, they didn't want us to adopt a child of color. They were still looking for an African-American family for Kiana, but she'd already been in our home over a year.
After a while, it became that we were fighting for our own child, and there was that possibility that they were going to take her from us. So it was just turmoil, you know. It was, you try not to hope, but then you, in the back of your mind, you're going, what if we lose her? That's when we contacted the Children's Law Center.
In our system, we constantly run up against fundamental principles that compete with one another. And so we always have to continue to look at what is the best situation for this child now. To Kiana, the Murrays were her family. That's what's magical in our system, when you're not having to figure out, oh my gosh, who are we gonna find to parent Kiana? There they are.
When we won the first round in court, the other side just gave up. Our lawyer from the Rocky Mountain Children's Law Center was there the whole way, came to the day of the adoption. It was such a joyous occasion.
We had a big party, and
but I'll never forget when the judge said, in the eyes of the law, she was never anyone else's child.
it was nice.
That's a special day. And you can tell them for the rest of their life, we picked you.
Well, I've been at the Law Center for 12 years now. I started when we were a small little operation of about 5 or 6 people. We were in the basement of a building. And in the difficult times on the work that we do, the difficult things that we've experienced as an agency, the constant has been sharing. There were times with funding issues that we weren't sure whether or not the Law Center was going to make it.
It was a struggle to keep the doors open, and I can remember mortgaging my house in order to make payroll.
She never, ever wavered. She never doubted that we would sort of get to where we are today and beyond. And so I think that's where we get this never quit attitude. Rajan is one of the clients I'm most proud of.
It's been a minute. How you doing? Feel me?
The circumstances that he came from were so dire, and during the course of the case, the events that unfolded were so extraordinary.
You want some hamburgers?
Yeah, man, can you hook me up?
Yeah.
What's been up to?
Not much.
I was appointed to represent him about 6 years ago. He was 16 years old at the time, was living with his sister, and then there was a dependency neglect case filed regarding some pretty serious abuse in the home. Initially, we didn't know a lot of the facts. Over time, we learned that it was a pretty torturous environment. There were baseball bats that were used to beat the children, coat hangers, telephone cords. They were tied up in the basement, and it happened fairly frequently.
It was just a lot of stress and loneliness, you know? My plan was to graduate when I was with my sister, but when I got in foster care, everything, like, just don't care no more. Well, I didn't think I was gonna live until I'm 18, you know, with all the bad stuff I was doing.
His life was not to trust people, period. He had lived that life for so long that he came to expect that as normal.
7 months out there, I got put in foster care. My sister passed with a massive heart attack, age of 33.
You couldn't imagine how hurt and angry. I mean, he was hurt obviously because, you know, he had just lost his sister, but he was angry because he wasn't there when it happened. He had been removed from her home, and he felt like he should have been there, and he felt like the system had wronged him for taking him away.
And it felt like to me that, you know, he was bullcrapping me, and went to his face and shoved him into a wall.
It's the only time one of my clients has actually assaulted me, and that's kind of what it was. But for Rajan, it was, I think, something different. He said, you know, he saw it in my eyes that, you know, that I wasn't afraid of him, and that I was going to do what I could to help him and fight for him, even when he was sort of attacking me in the way he was.
I saw in him, you know, that in his eyes, like, he really would do it for me, and I backed off, you know. I saw the honesty. I don't know how, you know.
I think it just goes to show you that, you know, that everything we do and every interaction we have can have a lasting and profound impact. And we may never know what it is. I certainly did not know that for Rajan, it was in that moment that things started to change.
Before I came to the Murray residence, life was hard. I never really got to be a kid. I always had to fend for myself.
Jolene's life was just very hard, and she's an amazingly independent, bright, resilient child. She had suffered some pretty serious abuse. She told us a story when she was 8 years old. Her dad was a drug dealer. So he made her sleep in the main room of the house. He goes off to the bedroom and goes to bed. Well, some guy came over to buy drugs, and Jolene didn't know, so she's an 8-year-old and lets this strange guy in the house, and the guy steals the drugs. So the next morning, her dad wakes up and finds his drugs gone, and he beats her with a stick. After having been beaten by her dad with a stick, she wanders off to Colfax and goes up and finds a 7-Eleven and gets help. Her whole life, she has had to make it on her own. She had to survive. Within a year, we had full custody, but as time went on, Jolene, our newest daughter, really made it known to us that she wanted to be adopted.
The reason why I wanted to be adopted is because this is my home, this is my family. I love them, they love me.
This is truly a case that's child-driven. For a girl Jolene's age, or any child Jolene's age, most of the adoptions that take place are going to be with younger children. So to have a family who's willing to stick with someone through the system, through the dependency and neglect process, and then still follow up on their own to do a private adoption is special, and it's rare. Her mom does have a right to contest it, so we may end up in a contested hearing. What's clear is that she's in the right placement, she's where she needs to be, and that she's loved, and hopefully that will win the day with the court.
I just finally found people who love me, and they're just my family.
You were telling me yesterday or the day before you're all about sauces.
Oh, yes.
You love to
I'm
make
all
your
about
sauces. What
My
kind of sauces?
Man, I know how to make bechamel, brown sauce, holidays.
We can't appreciate what lives these kids have lived before we get involved. We're never going to know the trauma and, in this case, the horrors that he endured. He now sees that he has a future. He wants to help people. He is a very skilled chef. He's currently in school to complete his culinary degree.
He did a lot of, you could say, a little overtime for me, you know. I ain't gonna lie, man, I got real love for Jeff, you know what I'm saying? I never had a positive male role model in my life. In my family right now, I'm the only one that graduated and went to college. The only one. Seen a positive role model that cares and that's fighting for me. It means a lot to me, you know? The only barriers in my life right now is myself. I want to own a restaurant, try to have like a 4 or 5 star restaurant, you know. That's a dream right there, you know, I could touch it.
After running this organization all of these years, I really saw the need to focus on broad reform, systemic change, not only in Colorado, but in the nation. And I am very pleased to say in 2010, we brought on Stephanie Villaforte.
We are really excited about the future for the Law Center because we are on the path to representing more and more kids than ever. We are adding clinical consultants as well as educational advocates to every single one of our children's cases. So what that really means is that a child now that was previously represented by a lawyer in our office is now being represented by 3 people. And to think that we can do it for double the number of children we have in the past is really exceptional.
It's hard to understand how children can suffer such serious abuse and neglect and chronic abuse and neglect and still, you know, have the will to survive. They can't do it on their own. They need help. I mean, you can't continue to put hurdles up in front of kids and say, keep on jumping over them and we'll see you at the finish line. But if you help them and you can sort of show them that you're never going to leave their side, and you're never going to doubt them, and you're never going to quit, that becomes an infectious thing. And you get to see these broken people sort of heal themselves.
Since 1981, the Children's Law Center has helped more than 10,000 children. I'm one of those kids.
I was one of those kids.
He's one of those kids.
I was one of those kids.
I was abused.
I was scared.
I was alone.
I needed someone to trust.
I needed a voice.
I needed someone to protect me.
We needed the Children's Law Center.
There are 12,000 kids in Colorado today just like me.
They're growing up in foster homes.
They're growing up in group homes.
Or in residential treatment centers.
They need stability.
They need love.
They need help healing from the trauma that they grew up with.
The Children's Law Center represented me when I was 13 years old.
Today I'm 20.
I'm 21 today.
Today I'm 24.
And I have all around a better outlook on life.
I have my own place, a great job, and I hope to be a music engineer someday.
I'm in paramedic school. I just bought my first house, and I'm very proud of who I am today.
Last year, the Children's Law Center helped 1,500 kids.
With the community support, they can do so much more.
Help protect Colorado's most vulnerable children.
Please support the Children's Law Center.
Help give other kids a happier ever after.